Board game chat. Board game chat. Board game chat. It's board game chat. Oh, hello there. Are you tired of playing regular old solitaire with a standard 52 card deck of cards? I have a selection here of other single-player games that you can play instead of regular old solitaire. So let's dive right in, and I can show you those as opposed to this. So the first one I want to talk to you about is called Patchwork Doodle. So this is Patchwork Doodle, and this is based off of an earlier game by the same designer called Patchwork. So these are both by designer Uwe Rosenberg and published by Lookout Games. So Patchwork is a two-player game, but Patchwork Doodle can be played solo or up to as many players as you want. So Patchwork Doodle is a subset of games called Roll and Write or Roll and Draw. So each player gets one of these pieces of paper. And this piece of paper has a bunch of squares on it that you're going to be drawing on throughout the game. To start the game, it plays the same whether or not there is multiple players or just one player. So you will draw one of these cards from the yellow deck, and they all have 7 squares on each of these shapes. And then you would draw that shape on your piece of paper here. So there's 3 up, 3 over, 3 up, and then 3 over. And you can do this as elaborate as you want. It does include some itsy bitsy colored pencils in the box for you, but you can use whatever you want. Doesn't really affect gameplay at all. You do just want to make sure that you know which shape you drew last. So there's my lovely blue highlighter shape. Then you would set up the red deck, which is different shapes, smaller shapes. The number on them just shows you what how many squares they fill up. So you set up 8 cards in a circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And randomly somewhere in the circle, place this guy in between 2 cards. And then you would roll this die, which it looks like a normal 6-sided die. It only has numbers 1 through 3 on it, though. So you roll that. This rolled a 1, so this guy only moves forward 1. And the card that he lands on is one that you may, but you're not required to, but you may draw it on your piece of paper. I've got a great spot for that right here. And so put together this patchwork of colors. So we do 3 rounds, and once this card has been used by all players, it goes away, and you keep doing that until all but 2 of the cards are taken. Then you fill in the rest of those cards. You do a mid-round scoring. So let's say that we had done a little bit more, and my scoreboard looked something like this. Oh, that marker's dead. Okay. So hopefully it's kind of visible to you. So then in between, or at the end of each round, the end of each of the 3 rounds, which are listed on the side here, you're going to do a scoring. And so you're going to look for the biggest rectangle that you have. So I will use red to draw around that. You wouldn't normally do this, but I'm just going to do that for your benefit here. So this red highlighted one is my biggest rectangle of completely filled spaces. Within that rectangle, I find my biggest square. So I'm just going to do some hash marks around that. You can see that's my biggest square within my biggest rectangle. Then I get 1 point for each square inside of that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Additionally, you get 1 point for each additional row or column. So I'm going to count these as columns. So 1, 2, 3. So I get 12 points total. And then you just write that on the side. And keep going. So you'd fill in the circle with 6 more cards, so you have 8 again in the circle, and keep playing until you've done 3 rounds. There's also some special bonus things that you can do here once per game. Then if you're playing it solo, you're really just playing against your own previous score to see if you can get the biggest score, get a better score than you got last time. You could even maybe set up the deck so that it's the same flop as last time that you played, and see if you're able to play the same cards to get a better score than previous. So that is Patchwork Doodle by Uwe Rosenberg. That I'm going to talk to you about. These are all games by Uwe Rosenberg, and they're all sort of in a series. As you can see, the 1, 2, and 3 on the side here. So like I said, these are by Uwe Rosenberg, designer, and the publisher is Stronghold Games. These can all be played solo, or 1 to 4 players. So I'm not going to go too deep into each of these games because that would take quite a while. I'm going to talk to you about Cottage Garden, and Indian Summer and Spring Meadow both use a very similar mechanic in the game. So I'm going to talk about Cottage Garden, and then I'll show you some things to do with Indian Summer and Spring Meadow. So to get started, I'll set up the game. There we are. So this game, you are building a garden, and so each player, you start with 2 of these garden plots, and they are reversible. So you start with 1 on the darker side and 1 on the lighter side. And you also have a scoring track. I'm not going to go too heavy into the scoring track and how to score this game, but that is there, and you would have 4 cubes, 2 orange, 2 blue, to keep track of that. And you score each of the garden plots when it is full. So to play the game, you select one of these really beautiful kind of Tetris-y flower tiles. Those just different kinds. This one's got some tea. I guess they're having a picnic on that one. So you would select one from the board, but specifically from the row that the gardener is in, which is this green die, and place it on either of your garden plots, and then the die moves forward 2 in the solo game. It differs depending on the number of players, and then you would select another one and add it to any of your garden plots. And in this game, you don't want to cover up the flower pots or the, probably not pronouncing this right, but the cloches, those kind of glass enclosures. Those are the things that give you points when these are done. So instead of taking one of the tiles off the board, you can instead grab a little flower pot tile and put that immediately on your board, but they only cover up 1 space, whereas the flower tiles cover up 2 or more spaces, often much more. Like this kind of F-shaped one covers up many more spaces. There are also these adorable cats, and those let you do a couple special actions during the game. So the board refills off of this lovely garden row that you have set up here. At the end of your garden row is this tiny little wheelbarrow. And so when the gardener makes it to a row where there are where there's 3 or 4 empty squares, the whole board refills, and it goes from the wheelbarrow on down the line. Additionally, you could spend one of the cat tokens that you have to refill the board early. So that's Cottage Garden. Like I said, I'm not going to go too deeply into all of the rules and the scoring on it, but the goal of this game when you're playing is to just beat your previous high score. That's often what it is with a solo game. Although it does say in the rulebook that 70 is a good score. 80 is amazing. So let's just shove those tiles aside. And then I can show you Indian Summer. It's a very similar mechanism. But this one and Spring Meadow does something kind of similar. Some of the tiles have holes in them. And so in this, these are leaves. And so you've got some red, some green. This bag has the red leaves, then here's the orange ones that I showed you, and the green leaves. And you are going to be filling up a forest floor, and you get some bonuses if you manage to place your tile so that hole overlaps one of the bonus pieces that you have. And finally, Spring Meadow. Is one where you are going up a mountain in spring, so the snow is still a little bit there. And then you're covering up this snowy mountain with the green grass and covering up these Marmite holes with the holes on these Tetrazine tiles. The scoring on all 3 of these games is different, but they can all be played solo, and they all use a very similar mechanism. So that is Uwe Rosenberg's Spring Meadow, Indian Summer, and Cottage Garden series. Give them a try. So the next set that I'm going to talk to you about is set in a different sort of way. So these ones all live in the same universe of games, which is called the Oniverse. So these are 4 games in the Oniverse universe by Shadi Torby. So Onirim, Sylveon, Castellion, and Nautilion. Onirim was the first one published, and kind of unlike the Uwe Rosenberg games that I showed you just a moment ago, these ones, although they do share the same universe, do not have the same mechanics. So I'm just going to show you the boxes, and I'm not going to delve too deep into each of these. So Onirim, this one you're in sort of a dream labyrinth, and I guess I should have said earlier, these ones are 1 or 2 player games, but they don't go beyond that. They're just 1 or 2 player games. So this one, you're in a dream labyrinth, and you're trying to deal with the nightmares and escape the labyrinth. And I just want to show you how these boxes open. So you see this is the nightmare, and then as you open it up, you find there's the rule book. That's the expansion rule book. Comes with 7 expansions in this one. And if you pull those out, there's all the cards, and this is a hefty wooden nightmare piece. I'll just set him right there. I'll just set this aside. The next one is Sylveon. So in this one, there is a forest that is on fire, and you're trying to prevent the forest from burning. So when you open it up, you see this scene of the forest, and it's a bit delicate. But as you pull that open, you'll start to see the forest behind. So there's our forest. And that pulls down to reveal the rulebook. And if you pull that out, there's a deck of cards and the Forest Fire Menace. This one is Sylveon. So this one doesn't use cards so much as it uses a bunch of tiles. So you're building a castle, and that is the defense against the dreaded menace. So you can see this little menace guy peeking through. If you open that up, you can see more of them. And there's the Book of Rules. And this one uses a bunch of tiles. Here is. So in the first one, this is a wooden piece. These two dudes are plastic. And in Untitled, you are in a submarine, and you're trying to recruit a heroic crew to vanquish the treacherous dark house that lurks in the oceanic depths. And so, again, there is this scene that unfolds. Time is a water scene, since you're in a submarine. And let me try not to spill all these pieces everywhere. So this one has several tiles. I'm gonna spill it everywhere. Okay. Yeah, kind of already did. So he's got a little spot that he rests inside of right there. Don't want to tilt it too much or I'll drop everything. And so that is the Oniverse games. Here's all 4 of them by Shadi Torby. They're all really fun 1- and 2-player games, and I don't know about the rest of them, but I know Onirim is also available on iOS and I believe Google Play as well. It's a couple bucks, I think. So these are those. So the next one I'm going to talk about is a little bit more of a somber theme. So this is This War of Mine. Very heavy box. So This War of Mine, and this is based off of a video game called This War of Mine. It's by a Polish company, and the video game and the board game are both, the theme is the impact on civilians in a war, specifically the 92 to 96 Siege of Sarajevo, which it's very interesting that a lot of war games will talk about the soldiers and maybe wartime battles and stuff like that. There is some fighting in this game, but it's not really about fighting. It's more about the impact of war that occurs to the everyday people that are stuck. And the Siege of Sarajevo was the longest city siege since World War II. So these people were stuck in a war zone for quite a while. This is a massive board. So this represents the house that you can't really even fit all of it on screen. So this is the house that your characters are in. This is a 1 to, I think, 4-player game, but at its heart it really does feel like a 1-player game only. When you start off the game, there's going to be these like rubble cards that are on some of the spaces. There's some closed doors, and so these are aspects of this house that you're going to have to clear away. Find lock picks or shovels to get through the closed doors or the rubble. So the first, there's the phases of the game. There's the day phase where you're living inside of this house. There's these minis that represent these people stuck in this city. There's quite a few of them. And it's great. They all have backstories. That there's these character cards that tell you the characters have weaknesses. Like some of them really want coffee, or this guy gets depressed if he doesn't have his cigarettes. This guy gets happier if he has a guitar, which is a piece that you can build in the game. So the first phase of each round, each turn, is building things within the house. So you can build up a crude stove. So that's it, the built side, which allows you to use the food in a more effective way. There's a radio. Here's an efficient heater, because there is, of course, snow and cold in this game that you have to contend with as well. So you have to take care of your characters by feeding them, giving them water, making sure the house is warm enough for them, building beds, building things to keep them entertained, to keep their morale up. So they can poke around the house, they can build stuff in the house, and then once you're done with that phase, it moves on to the night phase, where there'll be a set of cards here where you will choose some of your characters. Don't want to choose all of them. One of them or more should stay behind to keep the house safe against invaders, because there will be invaders trying to steal your stuff. But then some of the characters will go out into the world, and that is where this book comes in. So this is the book of scripts, and throughout the encounter cards, it will direct you to a certain section of the book. Very, very fine print here. And then in that section, it will tell you what is happening to your characters, and they'll be able to make decisions. And so this one says, you roll a die, and depending on the result, you go to another section, and something different will happen there. You can trade with people, potentially. You can buy things from other people. Each of your characters only has a certain amount of backpack space to carry things back with them. And there are standard, so the little white discs are water, and then wood and gears just stand for sort of any mechanical part. Those are the little gears. And then the wood pieces can be used to be burned for fuel, to keep your house warm, can be used in the stove, can be used to build things. And then there's just a bunch of these different types of resources that you can find and build throughout the game. So here's some jewelry, which is worth 10 money, so it's not really worth it. Anything besides maybe trading. Here's a book. One character gets happier if they have books. It's not worth a lot of money, but it is can be burned for fuel. So just a variety of different things. The board is reversible. The other side is winter, which makes it harder. And additionally, there's some scenarios that you can play through. So this is one example of just a lot more in-depth of a solo game. This can take quite a while, and because they expect that you might not want to play the whole game all in one sitting, because it can take quite a while, they even included a save sheet, so you can write down the status of your house, what you have in your storage room, so that when you pull it back out, you can just set it right back up to where you were before. So that is This War of Mine, based off the video game. I highly recommend this board game and the video game as well. Thank you. Alright, so these are the solo games that I talked about today. So as you saw, some of them were a little bit light. Patchwork Doodle takes about 20 minutes. These ones were all kind of in the same universe, but different mechanics throughout, whereas these ones here were all just about the same mechanics, but you know, no unifying universe really, just really beautiful art. And this one had a really heavy theme, heavy components as well, and allowed you to make some really heavy choices. And I didn't talk about it earlier, but this one, you know, you can really make some really deep choices in the game are presented to you. I remember one that I was playing, my characters went into a house, and in the house lived an elderly couple, and so the decision there was steal food from the elderly couple or not and just leave them alone. And you balance that out with, but my characters back home need the food. And, you know, of course it is all made up, but I really love games that evoke emotion, and this one really did that. So now you've seen what solo games are, what they can be, and hopefully you saw something that you liked. Might want to check out on your own sometime.